Hello everybody, it's Lunera here and welcome to Otterly DIY. So today we're going to be making the Starlight Cake from Final Fantasy XIV. So you can either go along this video with me as a tutorial, or you can simply laugh at our many successes and fails. In regards to fails, there's a lot of them, but we'll see how it pans out. We had a lot of fun and hopefully you do too. Here's a look at what we're going to be making today. The cake that we've made isn't as big as this one, however you can adjust the recipe as you like to make a larger cake if you wish to, just like this. For this tutorial we're going to be using a very basic Victoria sponge cake recipe. As you can see here, Zay is being very accurate with the scales. So what you're going to need is 200 grams of caster sugar, 200 grams of softened butter, 4 eggs, 200 grams of self-raising flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 2 tablespoons of milk. Now, one thing you'll see that Zay is doing here is adding the eggs throughout and the other ingredients so that you're not adding everything into the bowl at once. I've done this before and it went everywhere. So once you're ready, you're going to grease the pan with some of the butter that you have, and then we're going to add in the baking sheet. Of course, the baking sheet is optional, but when we were to take out the cake, this did make it so much easier. You can follow the way that Zay is doing here, or you can, I guess, just wing it. Entirely up to you. Now, with both of your baking trays prepped with the baking sheets and everything, it's time to add the most important part, which is the cake mix. So you can just keep on adding it until you believe that you have enough in there. Of course, less is more, as we don't want the cake to overflow, or maybe you do, it's up to you. So just smooth it out with a knife or a spoon. Spoon definitely the easier way to go with this, until you have 2 nice fat layers. And now it's time to add them to the oven, which should be preheated to 190 or gas mark 5. We're going to cook them for approximately 20 minutes, but do double check just to make sure they're rising, and of course they should be this sort of golden colour as you see. Onto the buttercream. So this part gets just a little bit messy. So what you're going to be doing is beating 100 grams of softened butter until it's smooth and creamy, and then gradually add in 140 grams of icing sugar, and if you like you can add in some vanilla extract as well, as you'll see that we're doing here. Now, Zay definitely likes vanilla, and I will say the extra vanilla taste was really nice, but of course it's entirely down to you on how much you actually want to add to this. And then with the icing sugar added, we just whisk away until we're happy. And now to bring back the cake, or the first layer at least, so that we can start adding the buttercream as well as the jam onto it. This is a very messy part, I will admit. It's entirely up to you if you want to add the buttercream or the jam first. Some people do one way, some do the other, but you want to make sure you get a nice and smooth layer of buttercream first, at least, if that's the way around you want to do it. Next we're going to add the jam. Now, this is one of our fails that we had. So, it looks more like a massacre of a cake than anything. You'll see what I mean. We think that we added a little bit too much jam to this, which is what made it so messy. It tasted really good in the end, so it's okay, right? And here comes the messy part. So once you're satisfied with the filling, you're going to get the top layer of the cake and just pop it on top. So if it is a little bit too messy for your liking, it is going to be hidden. And so long as it tastes good, it's okay. Now on the counter, you're going to spread some icing sugar, and we're going to use some ready-made fondant to make the icing layer for the cake. And you're just gonna roll it and roll it and keep rolling until it's nice and flat. And just make sure that you do have enough to actually cover your entire cake. In this case, less is not more. And then you're just going to pull it over to the rolling pin and if you need a hand, then you can always ask someone to move the cake underneath like I'm doing here. Also, you should love our matching aprons that we had for this. This is a very, very tricky part, so I am going to put some tutorials in the description below because this didn't go very well for us. It was a huge fail, which is why it's not included. It was terrible. It was funny though, so it's okay. And hopefully you have as much fun as we did doing that. Onto the decoration part of the cake. So this is a border that we're going to be putting around the bottom. You see this in the Final Fantasy XIV cake. We were going to try this with fondant, but if you actually look closely, it is just a generic border that they have around it. So we have used some silver card and then gotten red Sharpie to draw hearts and then colour them in. To hold the border in place, just place it around the cake and then hold it with some clear sellotape. Onto the decoration part. So this part got a little bit messy. What I'm doing here was a little bit of a fail. You can get icing in a piping bag. We're just using buttercream for this. So you can either use icing or buttercream. Icing was probably better because it is pure white, whereas buttercream has got that kind of yellowish tint to it. So you can use a piping bag to put it onto the strawberries and then add them. Now this part's a bit messy and you might need to clean up as you go along or even later on. So what happens is, I didn't realise, but strawberries bleed. So we had like strawberry juice just over the cake and, you know, red strawberry juice, white cake topping. It didn't go great. So what I've done here is I've just placed 8 larger strawberries around the outside and then some of the smaller strawberries around the inside. I've tried to make it identical to how they do on the Final Fantasy XIV Starlight Cake as well. Now here I'm just swirling some more buttercream onto the cake to match how they've done it. Of course you can use like very small meringues or you can do it as I have here. So between each of the outer strawberries there are 2 swirls and then just 1, and it goes around in a pattern. I found the easiest thing to do, because we're going to be putting holly on top, was to put a strawberry in the middle and then cover it with buttercream, just as you see here. And then we're done. I did have to make the holly out of card and then make small fondant berries to go on top, and yeah, this is the final thing all together, so it wasn't a total fail. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to my first tutorial. I'm sorry that it wasn't that great, but as you can see, I tried my best. So I hope this may have been entertaining or helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!